Welcome back to the channel where the art is always random and so am I. Today I'm bringing you another sketchbook episode and I'm bringing you Johnny Lawrence from Cobra Kai. It's a show about carrots, karate, karate, whatever you want to call it. And for all of you whippersnappers, back in my day we had the Karate Kid, the original. Not to be confused with Jackie Chan or Jaden Smith version, whoever made that. Anyways, that movie was okay I guess, but this is the real deal, the real Karate Kid. And now let's talk about, well, the Karate Kid himself before we go back to Cobra Kai. That way people who've never seen the movie can understand this show. So the original movie came out around 1985, and at the time I was like 0 years old because I wasn't born yet. I was born 10 years later, and even now remember watching it growing up and still being one of my favorite movies because that movie's just that good. It keeps constantly being played. I watched it when I was like probably 4, so almost 15 years later. And even that movie and Bloodsport were always good to watch. I remember watching it and I was like, bro, I shouldn't be watching Bloodsport, but it was a good movie. Back in time, let's talk about the movie, The Karate Kid himself. Daniel LaRusso, a teenager who was being raised by a single mom. His father passed away. They decided to move from Jersey to the hood part of California. He goes to school and is being bullied by kids in school who know karate. The dojo is known as Cobra Kai, and their philosophy is strike first, no mercy, win by any means necessary. Doesn't matter if you have to cheat, whatever you got to do, you have to win. The star pupil in that dojo is Johnny Lawrence, which is the leader of the group and now the main character in Cobra Kai, the TV series. After Johnny and his friends constantly attack LaRusso, one day an old man happens to just be there and save the day, save Daniel LaRusso. His name is Mr. Miyagi, who goes on to train the young LaRusso in the way of self-defense, the way of whatever his dojo is called. I think it's probably Miyagi Dojo, I don't know. If you ever watched a movie where they train by doing chores or, if you do this, go pick up the laundry basket, whatever, and then all of a sudden they know how to fight. It's probably based off of this movie. Other movies might have done something similar to this before, but this is the movie that, made that famous. The wax on, wax off. And then all of a sudden they're super powerful warriors or whatever. Alright. So you got that out the way. A kid goes, he gets bullied, he learns karate, and he fights the other karate dojo. And that's the movie. It sounds very simple, but trust me, it gets really, really good. One of the best movies I've ever seen, and it's a classic. So now let's talk about Cobra Kai. Alright. I'm going to try to talk about the show without actually spoiling anything, because, I hate spoilers. I don't want it to be ruined by me. So the show takes place many, many years after the events of Karate Kid. I'm assuming like 30-something years later. Don't care about specific numbers, but you get the point. It's been a really, really, really long time. So, yeah, now this show is flipped upside down. Instead of focusing on LaRusso, the good character, because he's all good, he does this and that. Now they focus on Johnny Lawrence, which was the bad guy in that. Well, he wasn't really the bad guy. He was just the main guy you're supposed to be or whatever. So, yeah, he was a rich kid growing up and now has nothing. He went from being a spoiled rich kid to just basically being a nobody. He never lived up to his potential and made nothing out of his life. He lives in a bad area and is fired from his job, so he decides to do is bring back Cobra Kai after an altercation outside of it was like a mini mart, like a gas station, whatever. And yeah, that's where the show starts off. The show is a good example of how you can be given everything and end up with nothing either way if you don't have the right guidance, because LaRusso is now married, has 2 kids, and is making a lot of money because he has a big ass house. So that goes to show you that, like, the show tells you if you have nothing but you have good guidance, you could make something out of yourself. But Johnny Lawrence decides to bring back Cobra Kai, but a different, less version of the dojo. His first student is a nerdy kid, Miguel, who has like barely any friends and is always getting picked on. And yeah, in return, Miguel teaches Johnny how to be a better person and just how things work nowadays, like technology and so on. The story has a lot of different high school drama points, but overall pretty good. The kids are all considered losers and slowly start becoming more aggressive, evil versions of themselves to show you what Cobra Kai can do to you. It changes you, mostly for the worst. And before I give it a rating, let's just talk about the goods and the bads. Alright, so I don't have much time. I don't want to make this video super long, so let's talk about that. The bad. So the show seems low budget, low production cost. I'm assuming because they didn't have full faith in it when starting off. And luckily, season 2 gets a lot better when it comes to overall production. So, more bads. I feel like the show throws in so many ad placements throughout, such as Coke, Coors Light, and Geico references. This isn't something you might notice, but for me, I'm very nitpicky with every single little detail, so it's a big deal for me. At one point, the kids were gathered around for training, and the one kid was like, oh, something about insurance, like Gecko? Is that like the car insurance? And I was like, oh, okay, they mentioned Geico. Obviously, they made it so obvious, so in the back of your head, it just clicks like, oh, they're talking about Geico. So that one was a good one, I guess, but overall, it was kind of annoying. Another kind of unnecessary thing they do throughout the whole show is they constantly do flashbacks. They do it for everything. I don't know. One of them could be walking down the street and all of a sudden it shows like a 10-15 second flashback about a part of the movie. And I'm like, okay, it's cool that you're referencing the movie. That's the main reason I like the show. But don't overdo it. Like, not everything has to be a flashback or going back into the past and redoing the same thing you did in the previous movie. That's what I hate about sequels sometimes, where they try to reference the original one too much to a point where they get lost in themselves. But yeah, now let's talk a little bit about the good parts about the movie. If you watch The Karate Kid and you're like, I don't know, your mid-20s, your mid-30s, you'll love this show. Nostalgia is a big part of the show. If you've never watched The Karate Kid, you'll still you'll love the movie, but then the show won't feel the same. It won't be as good to you. The show still is good enough to watch, and I highly recommend it. A thing I actually like is the flashbacks. I know I just said it was one of the worst things about it, but it's also one of the best things, because if it's done properly, and when they do it properly, which they do a lot of that, then the show becomes so good that you're like, wow, I can't believe I was like 5, 6 years old, 10 years old watching it for the first time and just loving the movie. And now you might be 25, 24, maybe even 30, 35, or 40, and you're just, wow, time flies. It just basically brings you back memories of when you were a kid and just enjoying the simple things about life. And also the karate scenes are actually pretty well done. It was hard knowing who was going to win and what the outcome of the fight was going to be, because in most movies you already know the main character is going to win, blah blah blah. You don't even got to try. Like a Marvel movies, I hate Marvel movies for that. There's really never any stakes. They're very enjoyable, they're well made, but it's like the superhero's going to win at the end. You know what I mean? So it's like kind of the tension level isn't there, where I'm just like, okay, I know the outcome, but it's still entertaining and worth watching the movie. But yeah, also they brought back the original cast, which was great. It made the whole movie 100 times better, because what I hate is when they try to bring back a movie or TV show and they do recastings. Here it would have made sense. It's been 40 years almost, so it's like, yeah, it makes sense. But for them, they went the extra mile. They got the original cast, and they're still all pretty good shape considering it's been that long. Like I said, Johnny LaRusso, well, not Johnny LaRusso, Johnny Lawrence looks kind of old, but Daniel LaRusso actually looks pretty young considering he's like 60. And he's like 58, 59, 60, but he still looks like he's in his mid 40s probably. And considering that's a big age gap, he doesn't look that bad, and he's moving around pretty solidly. And they didn't use as many stunt doubles as I thought they would, but pretty good. So yeah, overall, enough ranting. The movie was pretty good, but it also depends on what type of person you are and if you watched it or you didn't watch it. So I'm gonna give it 2 ratings. 1, if you're old, you've watched it when you were younger, this show will feel better and you'll enjoy it more. So if that's the case, then I'd give it like an 8.3 Kanye's out of 10. But if you're younger, you kind of don't really know much about The Karate Kid, I recommend you go watch it. The Karate Kid, for sure, you'll enjoy. But if you come back to this, the show might be like a 7 out of 10 for you, because you don't have that nostalgic feeling and, how can I put it this way, that emotional connection to it as much as somebody who's watched it 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So that's kind of it. If you've watched it before, 8.3 Kanye's out of 10. If you've never watched it, you'll still like the show, 7 Kanye's out of 10. And that's basically it. Hopefully you like my little rant. It doesn't even make sense because I just started going off and off and off and off. But Cobra Kai Season 2, I finished it today, and really looking forward to doing a review on that. And I might go back with a realistic drawing to Season 1 and spoil the whole thing for people that have already watched it. So, as I always say, like the video, comment and subscribe to help me out. Thanks for watching. Goosey has Ligma, and I'm out.